Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. We're going to take a look at justice system in Scotland and ask why it is so soft. This is another one, and a heads up on it. It's uncomfortable, but we've got to do this. You've got to address it. We have to ask the question why a 26-year-old man is allowed to go online, pretend to be a teenage boy, then blackmail and attack and a child, a 13-year-old girl, and all of this happening under the very noses of the authorities who know all about him and who he's actually being monitored by people who know what he is. He did all this while supposedly monitored. Why was he out? Why was he not clamped down on? Why was he not actually in a jail cell for what he'd done before? Why was he allowed to walk the streets? And why, knowing what he was like and what he was doing, was this allowed to happen? We're going to look at this. So just a little heads up that it may make uncomfortable listening, but it's Scotland today. It's the SNP. It's their version of justice where children are there, designed eventually to become fair game for men, just like Humza Yousaf. Here goes. So once again, we have one of these soft justice approaches to people doing things to children, all part of Humza Yousaf's softening of when things happen to children. All comes from when he was Justice Secretary. Seems very odd a man like him wanting to sort of take protection away from children and allow grown men to do these things to them. Meanwhile, he's also softening what the punishments are. Maybe let's make it harder to prosecute and so forth. It seems as though there's a definite push towards a certain thing being almost legitimised. Let's see how far he can push it before he's strung up. Anyway, SNP soft touch justice under the spotlight again after a PD 26 posed as a teenage boy to blackmail and then a 13-year-old girl while being monitored by a specialist unit. Joshua Pemberton, 26, R'd the teenage girl, 13, at a hotel in January last year. But surely if he's being monitored, this could not have happened. A sex offender pretended to be a teenage boy to blackmail and a 13-year-old girl while he was being monitored by a specialist unit. I think everyone in that specialist unit needs to be fired because it appears that they're pretty shit at the job of monitoring these people. Joshua Pemberton, 26, struck in January 22, having earlier served time in jail for sexual offences. He'd initially contacted the victim on social media while claiming to be 14. Pemberton went on to the child at a hotel in Livingston in West Lothian after threatening to expose intimate photos of the teenager that he'd pestered her for. 3 other girls were victims of the predator. 2 he had underage sex with and another he hounded for pictures. There he is. Now, everyone take a look at him because if you see him, you know what to do. You absolutely know what to do with him. Now, he's behind bars now, but you have to wonder how long. A judge heard Pemberton was being monitored by the Highland and Islands Sex Offender Policing Unit in his hometown of Inverness. What they need to do now is disband these monitoring units. They obviously don't work. What you do is when these people commit the crimes, you tattoo on the forehead what they are. Big letters, right across the middle of the forehead, what they are. And then you throw them out into the community and you let nature take its course. And that's all you need to do. And once they start seeing that that's what's happening to them, it will certainly cut down. It will certainly mean real justice, none of this shit justice. And of course the other thing is they'll never ever commit the crime twice. Not when they've got it in a jar. Anyway, he had been classed as high risk when he was freed from prison in 2020. Now, I'm going to suggest also, another thing here is, anyone who's released early has to be signed off. Whoever signs off on an early release is then responsible for that person. And if that person then commits another crime, the person who signed him off and let him go early has to do the same amount of time in prison as him. That should improve things as well. He's now back behind bars after he pled guilty to a total of 17 charges at the High Court in Glasgow. So he's a known. We all know what he is. He then gets released, which is strange. Why release him? Certainly, why release him fully intact instead of doing what they need to do, which is off with it. Then they're supposedly monitoring him, and he still does it. This is Scottish justice, is it? Anyway, he used a false picture to misrepresent his appearance to her. They messaged on Snapchat, and Pemberton went on to repeatedly ask her for nude pictures. The girl eventually relented. Pemberton later suggested meeting in Livingston, where Mr. Jones said she realised he'd been using a fake picture and that he was older. Pemberton warned her that if she did not go to a hotel for sex, he would send intimate photos of her to people she knew. He argued the crying girl in the hotel room. The court heard Pemberton also had sex with 2 girls aged 14 and 15 after he deceived them into thinking he was younger than he was. The 4th girl, aged 13, was preyed upon for pictures. Now, this is a man who needs to be in prison for the remainder of his life. They haven't sentenced him yet. They just put him back in jail, but they haven't sentenced him. His sentence is coming. But he needs to go to prison for the rest of his life. And I don't care how short that life is. And in prison, maybe the good old boys in prison, in there, the ones that are in for proper crimes, not this sort of stuff, may, off with the ghoulies. Just to make sure that he knows that he's never going to be able to commit that crime ever again. And that's the way to do it. Make him eat them, I would. If that was my daughter, he'd be eating it. I'm telling you now. That's how it is. But these people, anyone who signs them off out early must be as guilty as they are if they commit a second crime. Also, if you're monitoring, it's obviously not working. Monitoring isn't working, so a simple tattoo on the forehead. And also, off with the ghoulies. Anything like that, off with the ghoulies. You're never going to commit it twice, but just release them into the wild. Ghoulies off, tattoo on the forehead, off you go. And they're not protected by law. If you break the law, you should not be protected by it. Just send them out and just let people deal with it. Let's have a bit of proper justice instead of this shit where girls are getting used like that by a man who the authorities knew what he is. But I'm not surprised. This is Scotland. This is Humza Yousaf Scotland, a man who is increasingly pushing for the sexualisation of children. A man who increasingly makes the punishments weaker and who wants these things to continue as long as possible until he can get his, desired result, shall we say. Something that goes along with the desires of the people that he admires. Put it that way. I've got to be careful what I say, but you know what I'm saying. Because, eventually, hey, 9-year-olds are great. That's what he wants. That's obviously the direction of travel. Anyway, Lady Stacey was the judge, remanded him in custody and deferred sentencing until next month. If he doesn't get 30 years, we don't have a justice system. Scottish Tory Deputy Justice spokesman Sharon Dowie said, "It is disgraceful this offender was able to carry out more brutal crimes." And the police spokesman said, "We can never eliminate risk entirely, but sexual reoffending rates of registered sex offenders remain very low." Actually, that's bullshit. You can eliminate risk entirely. I can guarantee that if I was put in charge, I could make sure that no one ever committed it again. What I would do is this. Off with the ghoulies. Tattoo the forehead. Remove the protection of law. Send them out in the community. And if the next thing they were lying there in a ditch, there you go. What a shame. Never mind. Move on. Wouldn't bother me. Would not bother me in the least. Or that, or just a bit of rope. Just dangles. I think we should bring back dangling. I think there's no recidivism. This is the thing. Once you've dangled someone, they never commit another crime. It's weird, that, isn't it? And certainly these girls would have been protected. These girls would never have suffered again. But that's Scottish justice. That's Humza Yousaf's justice. Coming up. Now, I know my audience. I know, because I get the figures, I get the data. I know who I talk to. The vast, vast proportion of people who watch my channel out there are predominantly men, mostly men. It's about 90%. And most of them, and again, it's about 90%, are over the age of 45, 46. I think they're 46 and older. It's about 90% of the viewers. So it's people like me and people who are slightly older. And we come from an era where we believed in real justice. We don't believe in soft justice. We don't believe in cosseting criminals. And I'm pretty sure most of you, and again I'm going to go a very high percentage, would be quite happily to agree that the rope is a perfectly good punishment for certain crimes. And certainly someone who not only has been to prison once for this, but has then come out and re-offended again, is someone who certainly should be looking at, a drop. 3 steps up, 1 step down. Either that, or certainly off with the ghoulies, isn't it? Let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think an appropriate punishment for this sort of crime, especially as a repeat offence, should be. I personally think it should be the rope for the Justice Minister that brings it in. But that's just me. Thanks very much for watching. If you agree with me, do put the comments in. Do like the video and do subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks very much. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.